my name is Amber and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to do my October wrap up. This video might be a little long because I read 34 books in October, so let's just jump right in. The first book I read in the month of October was City of Ghosts by Victoria Schwab. This was for the Loosely Bound Book Club, which I co-run. This book involves Cassidy, who can see ghosts, which has normally not been as big of a problem until her family goes to Edinburgh. It's the kind of book where I couldn't decide if I was going to give it 4 or 5 stars. However, I felt the big bad wasn't developed enough, and there were a couple of lines that towards the beginning that were a little cringy that couldn't get past. However, I'm so excited for the next book, and I'm already starting to develop my own theories. The next book I read was #Murder Trending by Gretchen McNeil. October TBR I compared to kind of like Royale. And unfortunately, I did not end up liking this book. I ended up giving it 2 stars. It was a cool idea and it had terrible execution. It just came off as very stream of thought and it didn't seem very well thought out. And the ending just didn't seem very thought through as well. To talk about a chunk of books, I read books 7 through 12 of the Cirque du Freak series, which means I finished the Cirque du Freak series this month. I gave book 7 3 stars, however books 8 through 12 I gave 4 stars. I just overall really enjoyed this series. There's not much more I can add to that I haven't already talked about in previous videos. I do plan on making a spoiler-free discussion of the series. The book I read was Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. It is the sequel to Vicious, and I'm not going to talk much about it because it definitely highly hinders on your knowledge of Vicious. But I gave this book 5 stars, and it was so interesting, and I enjoyed the new characters we got. And I really enjoyed this world, and I'm hoping we get a 3rd one, maybe at some point in the future. Then Spookathon happened, and I ended up completing all of the challenges involved, so let me just run through what I read during Spookathon. The first book I read during Spookathon was Killman Creek by Rachel Kane. This is the sequel to Still House Lakes. The first book involves a wife of a serial killer finding out her husband was a serial killer and the aftermath of that. This book involves adding more character perspectives and I just wasn't a fan, so this book got 4 stars from me. The next book I read during Spookathon was The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was a reread for me. It's a gothic tale involving a painter named Dorian Gray who wants immortality. I'm going to put this out there. Rereading this the second time, I was like, wow, this is a lot gayer than I was remembering, and I'm kind of enjoying that. I ended up giving this one 5 stars again. I love Oscar Wilde's works, and I loved this book. It was a lot gayer than I was remembering from the first time. It was great. I ended up getting to Nightmares by Jason Segel and Krista Miller. It's about a boy named Charlie who he's pretty sure is the house he just moved into is the reason he can't sleep, and he's pretty sure his new stepmom is a witch. I ended up giving this book 4 stars. It is a hard genre to get a 5-star from me. It's just, I'm working on trying to find the perfect middle grade for me. But I did enjoy this a lot. I read The Hanging Girl by Eileen Cook, which I gave 3 stars. This is just a very middle-of-the-road book, and I just was kind of disappointed because I was hoping that Eileen Cook would have grown as an author since the last book I read from her, but that just wasn't the case, and it was just very middle-of-the-road. It was just meh. I don't have much to say. It just was meh. The last book I read for Spookathon was Twiddlin Trouble, 15 Tales of Women in Witchcraft, edited by Jessica Spotswood and Tess Sharp, and this book averaged out to being up 4 stars, so I gave it 4 stars. And then the Deweys 24-hour readathon happened, and because I do have a reading vlog talking about my process and my thoughts on every single one of these books I will be talking about, I will just link it. However, I will quickly run through what I read and what I rated them. When I Was the Greatest by Jason Reynolds, and I gave it 4 stars. Dealing with Dragons, which I gave 4 stars as well. Caroline's Heart by Austin Chant, which I also gave 4 stars. I read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein by Kirsten White, which I gave 4 stars. I read Searching for Dragons, which I gave 3 stars. The Lost Sisters by Holly Black, which I gave 5 stars. The Twits by Roald Dahl, and I gave that 3 stars. I read Evidence of an Affair by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and I gave that 5 stars. I read Her Halloween Treat by Tiffany Rees, and I gave this 4 stars. I read Behind the Scenes Volume 1, and I gave that 4 stars. Grace by Tessa Gratton, and I gave that 4 stars. I read Calling on Dragons, which I gave 3 stars. When I participated in Spooktober, I completed all but 1 challenge for Spooktober. The 1 challenge I did not manage to complete was my Clan Up challenge. I did not manage to complete my book with werewolves. However, I did start a book with werewolves during the week. The book I read for Spooktober was Before We Met by Lucy Whitehouse. I won't go too much into what this is about because it is a domestic thriller. However, I gave it 4 stars. I'll say it did take me a while to become fully invested into the story. However, it was an overall fun thriller once I was. Next, I read Rooms by Lauren Oliver, which I gave 2 stars. I absolutely hated this book. I didn't read the synopsis going in, and honestly, if you don't, you will have no idea what's going on. I read this for my book involving ghosts, so I knew ghosts were involved. However, if you're not paying attention, you'll not understand that some of the perspectives were ghosts. However, perspectives don't make sense because most of them are kind of boring and dull, and it's got an obscene amount of like description of breasts. Like if a character has breasts, you probably heard a description of them. And the unlikable protagonists don't give you a reason to root for them except for to possibly hate them. And like not even hate them like for a good reason. It's just like, you're boring, I hate you. And it's just, it was dull and just overall not worth my time. However, I did read Solo by Kwame Alexander. It involves a boy. His dad is a notorious rock star with a bad rap, and he finds out something in the beginning of the book, and it's his journey, and it just was really beautiful, and I found myself crying without realizing it at one point, and I ended up giving it 5 stars, and I really loved it. However, Goodreads reviews show me that not everyone does, but it was really good, so just, I say try it out. Next, I read Into the Drowning Deep by Myra Gray, mockumentary Gone South, and Mermaids, and I won't say much more than that. However, I will say that I gave this book 4 stars. Just as creepy as everyone says it is. However, my only qualm with it is that it takes some time for the real meat of the story to get started, but once it does, it is a ride and a half. The next book I read was The Wicked Deep by Shay Earnshaw. And this book involves a town where 3 sister witches were killed, and now every summer they come back and inhabit the bodies of 3 girls in town and cause havoc. And I ended up giving this book 4 stars. Part of the reason I gave it 4 stars was I had to restart it, and part of the reason was I did not care for the romance. I feel like if this book didn't have a romance, I would have given it 5 stars. I'm not sure how other people feel about the romance, but I just wasn't here for it. I read The Rad Leaves by Matt Haig. It involves a family of vampires, and the parents have not told their children that they are vampires. Something happens and children end up finding out. Giving this book 3 stars. I found this book really interesting, and I really enjoyed the premise. However, it felt really long, and the pacing was just really odd. I ended up finding myself looking and kind of going, hey, how much more do I have left? Because I felt like there was a lot of time between when things would actually be happening in the story, and it would have been really helpful if there was an indication when the narrator or character changed, because sometimes it would just change, and if you weren't paying attention to who the previous character was referring, you wouldn't know that you've popped into someone else's head, and it would be interesting that they were talking about what they were talking about all of a sudden. Again, overall, I gave it 3 stars. And the last book I read this month was Pretty Stolen Dolls, and oh boy, did I not like this book. This book is an erotic thriller, which probably should have been the first sign that I wasn't going to like it, as I recently unhauled the romance thriller. It's clear that there is more than one author for this book, and the can't tell if this book is trying to be an erotica to keep you reading, or if it's trying to be a thriller to keep you reading, but it absolutely feels it doing both, and it's just terribly paced. Like, you'll have an erotic scene, and then you'll have nothing, and then you'll have a thrilling scene, and then you'll have nothing, and then you'll, like, have an erotic scene, and then it just goes back and forth, and it's terribly paced. I'm giving it 2 stars. Would not recommend. So that is everything that I ended up reading in the month of October. I ended up getting to 34 things. I wish I had filmed wrap-ups for readathons as they were happening, but what can you do? What did you read in October? Did you participate in any of the readathons I did? Did you read any of the books I did? Let me know in the comments down below. If you liked what you saw here today, be sure to subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a nice day!